Welcome, wanderers of the heart and faithful listeners who crave the truths that hide behind the flash and sparkle. Welcome home to Secrets Behind the Stars. For so long we have watched a figure glide through the sudden glare of cameras like a swan across a stormy lake, elegant, gracious, and guarded, offering the world a radiant smile while something quieter trembled beneath. Cemre Arda learned to take shelter in silence, to close the door on the noise and let her feelings breathe where no one could turn them into headlines. But silence has a way of accumulating until it weighs more than words can carry. And recently, in an interview that felt like the ocean turning over, that silence broke. Not in a scandal or a scream, but in a confession so fragile it felt invincible, because truth, spoken without armor, often is. Tonight, settle in with us as we follow the thread of that confession, the one that leads back to her history with Gökberk Yildirim and the shadow that lingered long after their public smiles disappeared from the same frame. Before we open that quiet door, remember to subscribe to Secrets Behind the Stars, tap the bell so you never miss the tremors beneath the glamorous surface, and leave your mark with a like if our way of telling these emotional stories speaks to you. And if you want to sit in the front row of this ongoing conversation, the join button is your key to becoming a true patron of Secrets Behind the Stars. Cemre lived in a delicate split. On the one hand, the red carpets and spotlights that asked her to shine brighter than the moon. On the other, a private storm that taught her to be polished in public and scattered in private. Truth, though, is patient. It waits like a far-off wave, biding its time, gathering its strength. When her wave finally rose, during that now unforgettable interview, it did not arrive with fury. It arrived with the soft ache that leaves no mark you can photograph and yet carves its initials into your memory. She inhaled, steadied, and let the past step into the sun. Her voice wavered, and then steadied again, as she admitted the simplest, most devastating wish. She said that if Gökberk hadn't walked away, they'd still be walking side by side today. No fireworks, no showy dream. Just a complete one. That was the sting. Not losing applause or status, but losing the ordinary future she had already set out like a table waiting for two. Their love had paused mid-sentence, and every time she searched for words about it, you could feel the unfinished page flutter. Close friends, speaking as carefully as people handling a fragile heirloom, shared what the cameras never caught after their split. There were no midnight arguments at the gate, no scandalous scenes staged by chance. There was only the aftermath, quiet and vast, like a desert stretching past the horizon. They described nights when messages stayed unwritten and mornings when Cemre moved around her home like someone relearning how to stand. One friend, voice trembling, revealed the detail that makes the heart misstep: she had everything ready. Not a vague, someday. Ready. Now. When Cemre described those days, she did it with a tenderness that held both sorrow and peace in balance. She painted scenes with her words: candles trembling in a sea breeze, the coast breathing just beyond a terrace, a summer evening warm with laughter and music carrying a promise through the air. She described the smile she hoped would unfold on Gökberk's face as the melody swelled, the glance they would share when the world turned soft around the edges. If you listened closely, you could hear the rustle of a dress that might have been worn, the echo of a toast that never touched the rim of the glass. Let's pause, dear hearts of Secrets Behind the Stars, because this is the part that belongs to everyone. How many of us keep a folded dress tucked in the closet of our lives? A plan, a private vow, a future that was set like a stage and then, suddenly, struck in silence? Cemre's ache is not just hers, it is the echo of every almost. Share your reflections in the comments, offer your own stories of futures that slipped, because in this space, no one carries their grief alone. And if you value the care with which we trace these tender lines, consider joining our community to keep this human storytelling alive. But instead of a fairy tale finale, there was a departure. No final chapter, no instruction manual for the days that followed, just the heavy click of a door closing somewhere off-screen. One morning, as if a draft had swept through, he was on the far side of her life. No last scene. Only absence. And sometimes absence thunders louder than anything. Then came the turn no one saw coming. When the world had filed their story under finished, months after that quiet goodbye, Gökberk stepped back into the light and proposed where anyone could see. It was the grand gesture so many imagine at night, the spectacle, the sincerity, the promise written in sky letters. And that is where the story grew painfully human. Cemre confessed she felt cleaved in two. One half of her, the ancient half that remembers love like it remembers breathing, wanted to run forward, fold into him, say yes to the ember that had never quite died. The other half, shaped by months of silence and the discipline of healing, wanted to cry that time had shifted everything, that the train had already gone, that doors forced open never hang the same way again. She said it gently but with final clarity, she had a right to her truth. If he had not left, she would still be beside him. That was the private vow she kept to herself, the pledge she whispered to a universe that may or may not have been listening. And beneath the cool composure, beneath the practiced smiles, beneath the polite interviews, she admitted that what she wanted, in its simplicity, was to be his wife. After the interview, the internet did what the internet does. Like a sudden rainstorm, it arrived everywhere. People posted long letters below short videos. Fans said they felt witnessed. Strangers offered their own stories of love that never reached the last page, of promises folded away with herbs and photographs. Support for Cemre was immediate and fierce in the softest possible way. Viewers looked at her recent performances through a different window. Now even a quiet pause could pull a thread from your chest, a single glance could carry the weight of a real autumn. Her craft hadn't changed so much as our understanding, we could finally see how much true life she was pouring into the frame. Real experience does that. It turns dialogue into breath. Meanwhile, Gökberk spoke lightly in public, if at all. Those close to him whispered a truth older than any romance: some clothes cannot be mended with an apology. Stitching requires action, and even then only if the fabric still wants to be made whole. There was a line from Cemre's interview that the audience played until they could recite it in the dark. She said nothing aches quite like being fully ready to love while the other person is already walking away. It was not an accusation. It was a candle lit for a timing that failed them both. And in the margins of her words, you could sense a sturdy kind of hope, the kind you don't post. She's learning to be complete without waiting for a ringtone. She's learning to breathe without asking who is looking. Cemre is not a tragedy. She is a woman who knows exactly what she lost and chooses, still, to keep walking. So we stand here with a story that refused to end where the music swelled. Perhaps it will return someday, written with gentler hands and kinder timing. Perhaps it will remain a lovely echo that only surfaces on certain evenings when the wind moves in from the sea. Whether the door opens again or not is no longer the question. The true question is what we salvage from survival, how we choose ourselves without turning to stone, how we keep our hearts open without letting them spill everywhere, how we honor the beauty without letting it capture us. We asked a friend what Cemre did with the already parts of the life she had set out. The answer was quiet and right. She folded them, not as a surrender, but like someone putting away summer linens with care. She did not burn the dress in anger or smash the glasses waiting for a toast. She placed them where memory can touch them without turning cruel, where a person can walk past and smile at what once felt certain. There is grace in that. There is power in untangling your future from a single name, even when you still love the sound of it. What of Gökberk, you ask? The whispers suggest he has learned the steep price of timing. He knows now that late gestures cast long shadows. He may be gathering himself, choosing quieter actions over grand declarations. Or perhaps he stands at the edge of what can't be undone, looking back at the shore where they almost met again. Only time holds that answer, and time rarely hurries. Cemre, in the meantime, works. On set, behind a script, beneath lights that are less blinding than they used to be. The pauses between her lines feel like small bridges you can cross barefoot. She makes a cup of tea, she calls a friend, she learns the city again as if for the first time. She does not pretend it never happened. She does not pretend she is not different. She simply lets herself be exactly as she is, which is everything and enough. If you, listening now, feel the pull of your own almost, leave a word below. Tell us about the plan that never saw daylight, the promise you put gently back on the shelf. Our comment space is not a courtroom, it's a quiet kitchen table. And if this kind of careful storytelling matters to you, subscribe to Secrets Behind the Stars, ring that bell so you don't miss the next tremor, and consider joining our supporters who make evenings like this possible. We will keep watching with kindness. Not to catch anyone falling, but to recognize when someone stands back up. If one day we see Cemre and Gökberk in the same frame again, we will greet the image with the respect of people who understand that love, like tide, knows the moon more than the calendar. And if we don't, we will honor what they gave us anyway, a reminder that sometimes the most powerful stories happen not in what we shout, but in what we whisper to ourselves when the room is finally quiet. Before we part, remember the line that has woven itself into tonight's fabric. Readiness cannot carry a love that chooses to be late. Yet readiness can carry you. It can walk you through the next door, into the next morning, onto the next set, into the next version of yourself. Cemre is not waiting by a window. She is moving, step by step, hand on the railing, light in her pocket, future in her own name. Thank you for being here, for listening with your full heart, for choosing tenderness in a world that profits from noise. If Cemre's truth found a home in you tonight, show your support with a like, subscribe so you won't miss what the stars reveal next, and join our circle if you wish to sit a little closer to the stories that shape us. Until the next chapter in our living constellations, remember this from Secrets Behind the Stars: sometimes the greatest love stories live in the quiet of what might have been, and sometimes the bravest thing we can do is let that quiet be beautiful. And perhaps, on a soft night when the sea is breathing and the city is hushed, you'll hear the faintest turning of a page, not an ending, not a beginning, just the gentle sound of a heart learning its own language again, and trusting that, somewhere, someone will understand it.